Science has explained almost everything. Almost. We've got the Big Bang. We've got DNA. We've got quantum fields, dark matter, the curvature of space-time. We've built particle accelerators that smash protons together just to watch what falls out. And we read the wreckage like a language, a beautiful, precise language. We've mapped the genome. We've caught gravitational waves rippling through the fabric of reality like a stone dropped in a pond 1 billion light years away. We have explained in enormous and exquisite detail how this universe works. But here's what nobody tells you. We have not explained the first thing, not one. Because before you explain anything, before you explain gravity or genes or galaxies, you first have to explain why there's something to explain at all. And on that question, the most brilliant minds in the history of human thought have sat down, thought as hard as they possibly could, and come up empty. Not partially empty. Not we're getting there. Empty. Nobody knows why anything exists. And I mean nobody. Let that land. Really let it land. Because this isn't a gap in our knowledge the way we haven't cured cancer yet is a gap. This is something different, something stranger. Every answer we try to give just slides the problem one step further back. And eventually you run out of steps. And you're standing at the edge of everything, looking out at nothing, and you realize the question might not even have the kind of answer you expected. So let's start with the obvious thing. The answer everyone thinks they have. Feynman, people tell me. The Big Bang. That's where everything came from. And I love this answer. I love it because it's so confident. You say Big Bang and it feels like a door slamming shut on a mystery. Solved. Next question. But here's what you actually need to know about the Big Bang. It doesn't describe the creation of something from nothing. Not even close. The Big Bang describes the expansion of something. A hot, dense, almost inconceivably compressed state of matter and energy, expanding outward through time. That's already a lot. That's already matter, energy, the laws of physics, the structure of space-time. All of that already there, at the very first describable moment. The Bang is not an origin. It's a very early chapter in a story that was already being told. We just don't have the earlier chapters. Maybe there aren't earlier chapters if time itself began there. But then you have to explain why time began and why the laws that were in place at the very first instant were those particular laws and not some others. Physicists are very careful about this, by the way. The ones who work in cosmology know exactly what the Big Bang does and doesn't say. When you read a popular account that says the universe was created in the Big Bang, that's shorthand at best. At worst, it's just wrong, and the physicists who study it will quietly wince when they hear it. Now, some people push further. They say, fine, before the Big Bang, or instead of a before, there was a quantum vacuum. And quantum vacuums are strange, unstable things. Empty space isn't really empty. It seethes with fluctuations, with virtual particles popping in and out of existence. Maybe the universe itself is just one of those fluctuations. A blip in the quantum foam, something from almost nothing. I find this genuinely beautiful as a description, but notice what's already in it. There's a quantum vacuum. There are quantum laws. There are the mathematical structures that determine what a vacuum is and what it can do. Where did those come from? The vacuum exists in something. There are rules governing it. Why are there rules? Why is there a vacuum to have rules about? Every answer creates a new why. It's not that we're temporarily ignorant. It's a structural feature of the question, like trying to outrun your own shadow. No matter how fast you go, how elegant your theory, how beautiful your equations, you lift the rug on the mystery and there's another rug. Now, I don't want to just leave you with mystery. That would be cheap. So let me tell you what we actually do know, because what we know is extraordinary. And the contrast between what we can describe and what we cannot explain is exactly what makes this problem so sharp. The first thing, at the deepest level we can currently describe, the universe is not made of particles. That's the old picture, and it's not quite right. The universe is made of fields. Quantum fields. There's an electron field that fills all of space, every single point in space, everywhere at every moment. When you see an electron, what you're actually seeing is an excitation of that field. A ripple, a wave, like pressing your finger into a still lake and watching the disturbance spread. The electron isn't a tiny marble rolling around. It's a shape in a field, a brief concentrated vibration. This is not a metaphor. This is what quantum field theory, our most tested, most precise physical theory, actually says. And it works. It predicts the magnetic moment of the electron to 11 decimal places. 11. The agreement between theory and experiment is better than measuring the distance from New York to Los Angeles and being accurate to within the width of a human hair. So, fields all the way down. What are they fields of? What is the substrate? What is the medium they're vibrating in? We don't know. We describe the vibrations. We measure them. We can't tell you what's vibrating. The second thing, the laws are unreasonably, suspiciously specific. The constants of nature, the gravitational constant, the charge of an electron, the mass of a proton, the cosmological constant, are precise numbers. Not round numbers, not convenient numbers. Specific, arbitrary seeming numbers. And here's the thing about those numbers. If you change them even a little, nothing works. Change the strength of the strong nuclear force by a few percent, and nuclei don't form. Change the mass of the electron and stable atoms become impossible. Change the cosmological constant even slightly, and either the universe collapses in on itself immediately, or it expands so fast that matter never clumps together at all. The universe is precisely tuned for complexity, and by extension, for life, to the point where it looks like someone picked the settings. Obviously, we're not saying someone did, but why those numbers? We can measure them. We can't explain them. This is sometimes called the fine-tuning problem, and it's one of the deepest unsolved problems in physics. There are proposals. Maybe there are infinitely many universes with different constants, and we simply find ourselves in one compatible with our existence. Maybe. But that just pushes the question back again. Why are there infinitely many universes? Why is there a multiverse generating mechanism? Why is there anything at all? The third thing, and this one is quietly stunning when you really sit with it, in all of physics, energy is conserved. That's one of the most fundamental, best-tested laws we have. Energy isn't created or destroyed, it transforms. Heat becomes motion, becomes electricity, becomes light, but the total stays the same. The books always balance, except the universe began as an almost incomprehensibly concentrated store of energy. Where did that energy come from? Physics describes how energy behaves. It doesn't tell you where the first energy originated. There's no equation that says, here's how you get energy from nothing. The conservation law describes a closed system, but the universe isn't inside a bigger system. It is the system. And at time zero, the books just open with a balance already in them. And we don't know who made the first deposit. So, what do you do with all of this? Here's where I want to be honest with you about something I've thought about a lot. Because there are two very different ways people respond to this kind of radical uncertainty, and the difference between them matters enormously. The first response is to reach for a name. Something happens that you don't understand, something that confuses you or frightens you or just sits there like an unanswered question, and you give it a name, and then it feels solved. You've placed it. You've filed it. You can refer to it now. My father taught me something about this when I was a kid. We'd go for walks in the woods in far Rockaway, and I'd see a bird I didn't recognize, and I'd ask what it was. He'd tell me the name, the English name, the Latin name, the Italian name, the Japanese name. And then he'd say, and now you know nothing whatsoever about that bird, because knowing the name isn't knowing the bird. Knowing the name tells you what sounds to make when you talk to someone else who knows the same name. That's the whole thing a name gives you. The actual bird, what it eats, how it finds its mate, what its bones look like, how the eggs develop, why the feathers are that color, all of that is still completely unknown to you. You have a label. You don't have understanding. And the label creates the illusion of understanding, which is, in a way, worse than ignorance. Because ignorance at least knows it's ignorant. When people respond to the mystery of existence by saying quantum cosmology, or the anthropic principle, or the multiverse, I'm not saying those are wrong ideas. Some of them are fascinating, genuinely worth investigating. But watch what happens when those words are deployed to end the question rather than deepen it. When multiverse is said with the tone of a door being closed. That's naming. That's the label trick. You've wrapped the mystery in a technical-sounding package and let yourself feel that you've addressed it. You haven't. The honest move is the harder one. It's to look at the mystery straight on and say, I don't know, and mean it. Not as a temporary placeholder, not as a polite admission before you reveal the real answer. Just, I don't know, and stay with that. And be curious about it rather than anxious. This is what I've tried to do. It's not comfortable at first. We're trained to feel that I don't know is a failure, an embarrassment, a gap to be filled as quickly as possible. But I think it's the opposite. I don't know is the only honest starting point for real inquiry. Everything else is pretending. The scientist who is genuinely comfortable at the frontier who can hold an open question with curiosity instead of distress is in a much better position than the one who closes questions too fast. Because the fast closed question stops generating insight. The open question keeps going. It leads somewhere. You don't know where. That's precisely why you follow it. But now I want to take this one level deeper, because there's something that usually doesn't get said, and it changes the shape of the whole thing. When we ask, why is there something rather than nothing, we're assuming something. We're assuming that nothing is the natural state, that existence requires justification, that nothingness is the default and existence is the aberration. That makes intuitive sense. Nothing seems simpler than something. Nothing requires no explanation. It just is or isn't, whatever. But wait, what would true nothingness actually be? Not empty space. Empty space is not nothing. It's a geometry, a structure with properties, dimensions, the capacity to contain things and have distances measured across it. Not a quantum vacuum, because a quantum vacuum has laws governing it. Not the absence of matter, because that still leaves energy, fields, the curvature of space-time. True nothing would mean no space, no time, no mathematics, no logic, no laws of any kind, not even the rule that nothing stays nothing. True nothing has no properties at all. It can't even have the property of stability. And here's where it gets strange. If there's absolutely no law, no constraint, no structure, no anything, then how could a universe come from it? Nothing can't do anything. It has no properties by which it could generate or fail to generate something. It can't produce a universe because production requires a mechanism, and a mechanism requires structure, and true nothing has none. So maybe, and I want you to hold this as a live question, not a conclusion, maybe nothing is actually the impossible state. Maybe true nothingness can't exist because existence and structure and law are in some sense more fundamental than void. Maybe it's not that something needs explaining. Maybe it's that nothing is the thing that could never actually be. Several serious philosophers and physicists have pushed into this territory. Derek Parfit asked why the simplest possible thing exists and argued that no explanation might be needed for existence itself, only for the specific arrangements. Leibniz, 3 centuries ago, asked why the answer isn't just zero, just nothing, and he couldn't make it work. The more precisely you try to define nothing, the more it turns into something. I'm not handing you an answer here. I want to be clear about that. This is not an answer. It's a realization that the question itself might be standing on shaky ground. You came in thinking existence is the mystery, nothingness is the baseline, and now you're not sure that nothingness is even coherent. The mystery has doubled. It has a second floor, and maybe a third. So where does all of this leave us? Let me tell you what I actually think, not as a physicist, not as someone with a theory, but just as a person who has spent a lot of time sitting with this. I think the most honest thing you can say, the most accurate thing, is this. We don't know why there's something rather than nothing. We don't know if we'll ever know. We don't know if the question even has an answer in the way we usually mean answer. It may be that this particular question reaches below the floor of what any possible physical theory can address. Not because we're not smart enough, not yet, but because the question is asking about the precondition for physics itself. Physics can't explain its own preconditions any more than your eyes can see themselves. This should be terrifying, and sometimes it is. Late at night, when you actually let it in, the idea that you exist, that anything exists, and there is no reason, no bottom, no ground, that can feel like vertigo, like the floor dissolving. But here's the thing. I found that if you stay with that feeling long enough, something shifts. It stops being terrifying. It starts being astonishing. You start seeing your own existence not as a puzzle to be solved, but as a staggering fact to be experienced. You're here. The whole thing is here. Stars, oceans, consciousness, mathematics, love, music, light, all of it, pouring out of laws we didn't choose, toward outcomes nobody planned, from an origin nobody can locate. That's not nothing. That's not a failure of explanation. That is the most extraordinary thing there is. I've said it before, and I believe it more the older I get. I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers that might be wrong. I have approximate answers, possible beliefs, different degrees of certainty about different things. But the uncertainty itself, the open question hanging there, unresolved, I've never been frightened by that. I find it beautiful. It means the world is bigger than we've measured. It means there's still something real to discover, not just details to fill in. The greatest scientists in history weren't the ones who had all the answers. They were the ones who could sit with the most profound uncertainty and keep their eyes open anyway. Keep asking. Keep following the question wherever it went, even when it went somewhere inconvenient or humbling or strange. That's what physics taught me. Not certainty, not a complete picture. It taught me how to not know gracefully, how to hold mystery without flinching, how to look at the deepest question there is, why does anything exist at all, and say, I don't know, and mean it as an invitation rather than a defeat. You are right now a structure of quantum fields, asking about the origin of quantum fields. Consciousness, made of matter, wondering why there's matter. A part of the universe trying to look at the whole universe from the inside. That's an impossible position and a beautiful one. The question why anything exists has no answer I can give you. But the fact that you're asking it, that we're both here having this conversation inside a universe that has no obligation to be comprehensible but somehow mostly is, that's the most interesting thing I know. Stay with it. Don't close it. Not knowing is not the end of the road. It's the beginning. The only honest beginning there is.